Ever since the release of Star Wars The Last Jedi by writer and director Rian Johnson, a lot of people have wanted change going into Star Wars Episode 9 for the sequel trilogy by JJ. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, a lot of people are very curious about how Mark Hamill is going to perform as the character of Luke Skywalker in this final version of the current trilogy. Now, Star Wars Episode 9 most certainly is a big deal by Disney and Lucasfilm. They are looking at this movie as a course correction technique. Now, one of the biggest subjects, of course, is Luke Skywalker going to come back to life in Episode 9? It's a huge question for sure. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it comes to some of the set leaks, the set designs, the concept art and storyboard descriptions, etc. One of which has all to do with a major hint and/or indicator that Luke Skywalker may very well indeed come back to life, at least temporarily. Specifically, a description of an older Luke Skywalker appearing as he did in The Last Jedi on the planet Ahch-To. He stands in front of Leia inside of some kind of large base. He holds a blue hue and has little transparency. The next goes over Luke walking closer to Leia, with each step Luke becoming less blue and solid, eventually standing right in front of Leia now, with no transparency at all, with no blue tone at all, and the blue tone being vanished. Now, Leia hands out Luke's lightsaber that once belonged to Anakin Skywalker. The next goes over Luke now holding the Anakin hilt and examines it with a smile. The last shows Luke giving the saber back to Leia as both Luke and Leia hug it out. Now, this obviously is a Luke and Leia reunion scene for Episode 9, and this is an actual reunion scene because if you look at The Last Jedi, technically Luke wasn't really there, right? He was actually a Force projection. The real Luke was on the planet Ahch-To, so he himself didn't really get to meet with Leia actually, per se. So this definitely seems very interesting, and I think it does line directly up with what we heard about a couple of months ago, that J.J. Abrams plans to really do something quite surprising and huge for the character of Luke that is going to change everything within Star Wars lore, especially with the Jedi. And I think that from what it seems here, this is something that's taken directly out of one of the original scripts of Return of the Jedi, where Obi-Wan Kenobi was able to come back to life, at least temporarily. You know, he was able to become all flesh and blood in front of Luke Skywalker, and Obi-Wan was explaining how now he is able to basically exit out of the netherworld of the Force. So this could very well be Luke Skywalker coming out of the netherworld of the Force and actually solidifying in the mortal world and becoming more of a living figure. So I don't know what this necessarily means. This is definitely a hint of Luke Skywalker coming back to life, at least in some way, shape, or form. We're not quite sure exactly what's going on here. However, as he walks closer to Leia, alright, the blue transparency begins to dim, as well as everything else that indicates that he's a Force ghost, and he looks like he's alive. So I think that what's really going on here is that he's able to essentially look as if he's alive, and actually, you know, become a living person in the mortal world, at least temporarily. That's my guess here. This is most definitely a big hint that Luke Skywalker is going to come back to life in Episode 9, in my opinion. In a very unique way, though. I don't think he's going to come back to life per se, but, you know, like how we think he's going to come back to life, like, you know, alive and well, like how he was in Return of the Jedi or The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I think that what J.J. Abrams is trying to do is to bring him back to life in his own way. So, like I said, I think that all ties into Luke coming back to life only temporarily, and we've seen this happen. It's quite the cliche thing. We've seen this happen multiple times in many different TV shows out there, many different movies, etc., comics, characters coming back to life for, you know, only a certain amount of time, which honestly, I kind of enjoy that idea to an extent, as long as the character does something meaningful and just something that really serves a purpose in the story. So this would serve a purpose in a sense where Luke is able to actually have a real reunion with his sister Leia. Maybe perhaps he's only able to come back to life through a connection to somebody that's part of his bloodline, like Leia. You know, who knows what JJ is really going to do with this movie. It definitely lines up, though, with what we heard a couple of months ago, that J.J. Abrams plans to do something huge, very big, a huge revelation for the character of Luke Skywalker in Episode 9. And I think that what JJ is trying to do here is he's really trying to capture the audience. He's really trying to recapture the audience coming out of The Last Jedi. Now, if you guys like The Last Jedi, that is perfectly fine. Everybody has their opinions. But I think it's pretty safe to say, of course, that a good majority of people, or at least a lot of people, just had problems with the movie. And if you look at Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, a lot of people want to change with the character. And that's exactly what we're going to be getting in Episode 9 in the forms of flashbacks and whatever is happening here, this version of Force Ghost Luke, which could honestly be, you know, a different level of being a Force Ghost. Maybe J.J. Abrams is trying to create a different medium here in the Star Wars lore. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.